How you doing, James Smargy here, and we're going to discuss and identify the lubricating components of this Cat C7. We're going to first start down here at the bottom of the motor, oil pan. The oil pan right here maintains the adequate amount of fluid with the oil to lubricate and cool or assist in cooling of this Cat C7 engine. So I'm going to finish off taking the bolts here to find out what's inside of it. With my assistant on the other side, he was removing the last few, and we'll drop it and set it underneath this engine. We'll lower it down. Obviously, we've drained 99% of the lubricating oil from the engine, so that way it was much easier to do. So that's definitely going to be your first step when you want to drop the pan. Otherwise, you're going to have approximately 2 gallons of engine oil sitting all over the place. Next, engine oil pump. Engine oil pump is located on the front of the motor, underneath the crankshaft. It has a extended engine oil pickup located to the bottom portion, which is the deep end of the oil pan, which is called the sump. Engine oil is picked up from there, located through the pump, which the pump is driven from the gear off the crankshaft into the outlet. From there is up through an engine oil passage, comes out a hole right here through this hole right here, which then it'll go to the engine oil heat exchanger and to the oil filter, which I'll cover in a second. Once it goes through the engine oil heat exchanger, it'll exit this orifice here into the engine oil filter. From the filter, it's going to get pumped to the turbocharger. We're going to go and cut down this one and go to another engine. Hold on one second. From the engine oil filter, it's going to exit out of this port right here, transfer up through an oil line into your turbocharger. Turbocharger then is going to get lubricated and cooled via engine oil, and it'll come out the bottom drain here. There, it'll drain back right here, which will fall back into the sump of the engine. Another port on the internal side is going to then push the engine oil into the block. From the block, it's going to head up into the head, and then it'll do some more of the engine ports in through there. And one of those ports it's going to do, through the major ports of it, it's going to go to the piston oil cooler tube. This oil cooler tube is located up underneath of each cylinder. And the concept of this is the engine oil pressure will shoot up out of here into a crevice, into a hole at the bottom of the piston, which will be continuous flow. But as the piston comes down and rotates up and down, oil will be shooting onto the bottom shaft of the cylinder, the connecting rod, and then into that hole. Once it grabs that hole in that piston, on the bottom side of the piston, which this is not it, but there's 2 small holes on this one, but on the Cat C7 there's 1 large hole. It'll enter that hole and then you hit into the ports that are inside of your wrist pin here. Again, not the actual one, but it'll drain down. This is just a connecting rod from another engine. It'll connect down from the wrist pin to a hole right here in your wrist pin, which will then cool and lubricate your wrist pin, going down into your main bearings on your journals and your crankshaft. There, engine oil will continue to lubricate the engine oil journals right in here, creating a nice wear surface and operating surface for your oil to help lubricate and cool the crankshaft. From there, to go back down into the sump, start the whole process over. One thing I left out, engine oil heat exchanger, that we're getting today. As it will go, engine oil heat exchanger, oil will go in one side, come out through the other. While the engine oil is rotating through the heat exchanger, coolant is driven through these passages here, from one side to the other, cooling the engine oil as it starts to rotate its process through the engine. Once it goes through the heat exchanger, then enters one side of the engine oil filter, goes through this engine oil filter, goes out through the outside and up through the center, back out. Now you have cooled and cleaned engine oil rotating all the lubricating portions of your engine. And then it is back down into the sump and rotated again. So it is continued evolution throughout the process. Another one of the things when it does, as it comes through the head assembly, there's a small oil pressure line that runs through every one of these piston or the fuel injectors, creating the high pressure injection process of it. So it is the actual, as the high pressure up to 4,000 psi of oil pressure is going through the injectors. When it is timed on which injector it is timed for, it'll open up that passage, and then that engine oil pressure will actually move a piston inside the injector, allowing fuel injection in there. It'll also go through the camshaft, which is located right in through here, lubricating your rockers. So engine oil pressure from the head will come down your rods, get onto the top half of your roller tappers down here that actually roll and hit the injectors or hit the camshaft, and then it'll all drain and continue to lubricate all the pieces and back down into the engine oil pan. So that is the lubricating system on a Cat C7 diesel motor. Thank you very much.